Hey guys, I'm back. Joe Neal here as part of the INC family to bring you a recap of UFC Fight Night Columbus, which had some great fights, and even though we might not have all been that excited after being spoiled last week, honestly, some pretty good fights after watching a couple of them a few times to really get like a good analysis of them. Let's get to the fights. But let's start with the main event, which was Curtis Blaydes versus Chris Daukaus. And, interesting fight, kind of idea for the ramifications of the fight, as both fighters have recent losses to Derek Lewis. And you kind of wonder, especially with the Curtis Blaydes side of things, like he has two losses to the champ, Francis Ngannou, and for him to really make a case for a title fight, he has to be the number one undisputed guy, like above everybody else. There has to be no one else even close to him on that level to get a title shot. And I thought this was a pretty good fight to kind of get him on that track. And for Chris, you have to wonder after your first UFC loss, like how does he recover? How does he move forward? What adjustments does he make in his game plan? And just how is he continuing his improvement as a fighter? And well, we kind of got some good answers to both of those questions, and all those dilemmas really more like as Curtis Blaydes came out, and we all expected him to show a wrestling heavy attack. I'm sure, as it's kind of his thing. He wants to kind of take you down and just control you for 25 minutes. And he actually came out. This whole fight was a striking affair. No takedown attempt or even feinting a shot from Curtis Blaydes, and he was able to just use a very simple but effective striking style with like long jabs, a good straight right here and there to keep Dawkis from like really getting any of his offense going. As Dawkis would try and step in with shifts to try and shifting his stance over and over to try and get any kind of offense going, but it really wasn't working out so well for him as Dawkis was just kind of stifled out, kept out, and it really led to a pretty clear Curtis Blaydes first round win. Second round, Dawkis, you seem like he had a chip on his shoulder, he's ready to go, starts loads up on a right hand, trying to get more aggression going by putting the, kind of change momentum by stepping forward, putting a big assault on, and keeping things, like one big hit, you could swing the momentum your way, especially by being aggressive. You can break fighters with pressure, and that all sounds pretty good to me. In hindsight, it really wasn't though. As he goes for a big right hand, Curtis Blaydes throws at the same time. His is faster and straight down the pipe, and it plants Dawkis clean. And then Curtis Blaydes lands some fantastic elbows, and it shows off a killer instinct that the UFC and fans alike, me included, I'll admit, have criticized him in the past for just wanting to play it safe, like lacking a killer instinct, and he really showed it off. Really hard elbows, just vicious ground and pound to secure the win and get a stoppage win in the second round, all in the striking. I will admit I did expect him to be a little bit more aggressive in this one. I expected him to kind of get some takedowns, be a little more aggressive on top position at least, kind of similar to his wins over Alistair Overeem, and we have seen him stop guys on the feet before. He stopped JDS on the feet a couple years back. This was a little different, and I, it was a good win, honestly, and it kind of helps, create this interesting dilemma in the matchmaking for the heavyweight division. As well, what do you do now? As two losses to Ngannou, we don't even know what the situation with the title is, and if Ngannou isn't going to be the UFC champion, Ciryl Gane has to be in there somewhere. And then Curtis Blaydes did call out Stipe Miocic, who was in attendance. He called him out, and I don't know, something about that doesn't hit the ears right. It doesn't sound as like pleasant to the ears. So I kind of thinking about this a little bit and having time to think over it and mull this. I think a great fight for him would be Tom Aspinall, who just won last week, an impressive showing. I think both fighters are on a pretty good rate, and a win over either one for both fighters is fantastic for their cases for a title shot or just moving up in the division, especially since the UFC decided to kind of forget that Aspinall wanted the slow rise to the top. if they want to keep forgetting that, then Curtis Blaydes sounds like a great pick. I think their styles kind of create interesting dilemmas for both, as Curtis Blaydes has had issues with hard strikers in the past, and we haven't seen him really kind of deal with a grappler like Tom Aspinall has, who, well, he can just do it all. He's not really just a grappler. And that's what makes Curtis Blaydes interesting, is you see these great, well-rounded fighters historically kind of struggle against these super dominant wrestlers. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And for Dawkis, I think for him, it's like, well, what do you do now? It's 2 straight losses in a row by stoppage. Well, it's heavyweight, and you still want young talent at heavyweight. So I think just tossing him to the side might not be the play. I think you kind of throw him down and get some prospects and kind of see really where he is, because I think Derek Lewis might have been too big of a jump for him in competition, especially with that power he has. I mean, he just knocks out, feels like, everybody. So in my mind, I'm kind of thinking either Juan Espinino, who was the winner of the Ultimate Fighter with Whitaker and Gastelum, or Whitaker and Gastelum, or another one is Sergey Spivak, who just won last week. And no, it was Sergey Pavlovich that won last week, and him too. Actually, any of those 3 guys, put on a great fight, I think, with Dawkis, and I think you can really kind of see where he stands truly with that, and a plus as well as seeing more improvements, more just like further improving his game and becoming the potential star that he could be. I think he could be. I think he's a pretty interesting personality. He's not as dry as some people I've heard say. And he does have the power, which is what we all like at heavyweight. To the co-main event, Alexa Grosso versus Joanne Wood, a fight that was kind of hard for me, as I love both these fighters, and I don't want to see either of them lose. Such is the name of the fight game. Out the gate, game plan's kind of clear from both fighters. Alexa Grasso wants to dart in and out with punching combinations and end with low kicks, whereas Calderwood kind of wants to pressure with like long rangy kicks that are either going to force Grasso to go to the cage, where she can try and clinch up, or kind of frustrate her, make her want to be a little bit more aggressive and step in maybe a little too aggressive and get caught in a clinch again, and which is Joanne Wood's just specialty. And well, it was pretty awesome, and it kind of worked out for Joanne as she managed to get a clinch, but as soon as her leg went up for a knee, Grosso was already throwing just boom, 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 shots back and forth. Grosso throws it to the ground, gets on top position, some strikes from both fighters, but Grosso lets the fight go back up to the feet, and, big momentum shift. But Joanne starts getting going in the striking. Now she's landing combinations instead of single strikes, ending with low kicks as well, kicks to the body, and goes for a spinning elbow, lands clean, but Grosso gets a hold of her, takes her back, takes her down, sinks in a rear naked choke, and it's like her first finish win, I think they said, in like 7-8 years, which is fantastic for Alexa Grasso. Kind of gives her this big signature win that fans of hers have been kind of wanting from her. It was just great. It was a really good fight that you kind of saw the skills from both fighters, and it was a kind of highlight reels at times for both of them. But sadly, someone's got to win, and Alexa Grasso looked good, and I think I know an opponent for her. Someone else that fought on this card. But let's keep moving on as we get to the brawl, the big wild fight that I'm sure everybody's going to be talking about, as Bryan Barberena takes on the firstborn son of violence himself, Matt Brown. Now, Matt Brown's a big favorite of mine. A lot of how he fights in the clinch is very exciting to me. He wants to get a tight clinch and then move you to either sweep you or change your momentum and kind of herd you into the way of a strike, which is awesome. It's such great mastery of the tight clinch. How do you not love Matt Brown too? He's always known for bringing his A game every time. Well, Bryan Barberena, great pressure fighter as well, with a lot of aggression. Sounds like an instant classic on paper. Yeah, it was. First round, Matt Brown ends up getting a sweep, gets another sweep, good pressure, good fighting, pretty good start, And Brian Barberina's corner, in between rounds, says, "Okay, so he's landing these stupid sweeps. That's all he's really doing." And it's just kind of funny. I had to bring that up because it made me laugh pretty good. Well, then Brian Barberina starts putting the pressure on, starts defending the sweeps pretty well, and at any time Matt Brown got the tie clinch, looking to throw an elbow or a knee, Brian Barberina starts just throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him, which isn't always the best idea, but it was working. Like, the accumulation of strikes, this constant, like, he's always throwing, it feels like Brian Barberina is always throwing a strike, even if it's just a slapping low kick, or he's feinting in and then trying to land like a combination. He's always throwing something, it feels like, and that was starting to wear on Matt Brown. Matt Brown gets hurt with a big elbow. Brown fires back, but Barberina just says, nah, and just starts landing a combination, and landing a combination as the round's ending, really putting a stamp and making the fight 1-1. And one thing I haven't mentioned, and this is how the third round opened, is Matt Brown was landing a great body kick to the open side of Brian Barberina, as it was a southpaw orthodox matchup, kicking the open side great. And Brian Barberina, every time he took that kick, looked like he was using all of his guts from Berserk-esque willpower to avoid making a face. Just, okay, Whereas I probably would have got kicked in half if he landed on me. And he just kept going forward. Both their gas tanks at times seemed like they were on E. They would have been stuck on the road, on the side of the road, but they just kept going. Non-stop pressure, non-stop striking, and the pace was insane. Matt Brown gets a takedown. Barberina gets back up, though, and just starts hurting Matt Brown with just constant strikes from back and forth. Just insane exchanges. And it was a really just great display of good old-fashioned violence. Family fun for everybody. Next, we had a potential title eliminator in Kaikaura versus Askarov. Great fight from both fighters. The first round, as we know, Askarov is a great wrestler and a grappler. Kaikaura is the striker, the classic striker versus grappler matchup. Well, Askarov in the first round, after a slow start, gets a takedown. Gets backpacks onto the back of Kaikaura. Kaikaura is standing up and just trying to fight off chokes for the rest of the round. And manages to survive, but clear round for Askarov. Second round, Askarov gets his takedown stuffed. Kaikaura is using his head movement to deceptively manipulate how Askarov is going to defend from the coming offense, as he would kind of dip low, come up with an uppercut, very similar to how Team Alpha Male would do it, like Cody Garbrandt and Chad Mendes were geniuses at that back in the day, or he would dip one direction, feint a head slip to the other direction, and then come over the top with a left hook or a right hook from the switch side. It was very great work. He hurt Askarov multiple times, and Kaikaura took a clear round in the striking in round 2. So, tied 1-1. Both these guys have clear game plans. Now we get to see what adjustments are being made further from both fighters, and it's, I was on the edge of my seat, and, we saw the adjustments. Askarov wasn't getting hit as cleanly, but he was still getting tagged on the feet. He was still losing the striking. And Kaikaura, though, was still stuffing takedowns, but one time he gets, Askarov gets on the hips, pressure, couldn't finish the takedown. He did manage to kind of evade getting taken clean down, and he gets kind of pressed against the cage, landing elbows to try and get something going. And at the end of the round, both fighters just laid it all out there. And initially, I wasn't really sure who to score the fight for. But upon the second time, I do agree with the judges. Askarov, I thought, did lose the fight. I thought he didn't do enough in the third round. Kaikaura clearly won a decision. And pretty awesome fight, honestly. A fight that I would have given Fight of the Night for, because of the high stakes, just kind of elevated it up to that level. Next up, we had on the prelims, it was Manon Fiore versus Jennifer Maia. And I really like this fight a lot. Mostly because I'm a sucker for like long side kicks and just like long kicks in general. And Manon Fiore was able to just kind of keep pressure going, keep the distance, and keep Jennifer Maia from really just being overly aggressive in the striking. She because Jennifer Maia just wanted to kind of pressure in and try and get the fight to the ground using like big looping shots. And Manon Fiore just kind of kept her out with a sniper left hook and great straight kicks the entire fight, basically. Even Fiore landed a big slam of her own, big trip. And it was great stuff. And she showed a good element of grappling in her game as well. And the reason I wanted to bring this fight up is Alexa Grosso just won on the co-main event. And they're in the same division. They're both ranked similarly. I think both fighters are going to be in the top 10 for sure. If Alexa Grasso isn't already in the top 10, I don't have the rankings memorized, sadly. I think that makes sense for both of them. We both saw elements of their game. They're both known as strikers, but we both saw elements of their grappling game. And I think their styles create a very fun matchup, especially because you want to see that because this division is in dire need of some new blood, some new talent that fans can get behind. And I think either one is deserving. So I hope to watch that fight one day and get to cover it here. And hopefully try and remain as unbiased as possible. But that's it for the fights in UFC Fight Night Columbus. That's it for me, Joe Neal, and this is the INC. The INC, thank you for watching.